Hey everybody, today I'm going to show you how to use SWRevealViewController, otherwise known as how to create your own slide-out menu with Swift and Xcode. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, first thing we need to do is open up Xcode and create a new Xcode project. This is going to be a single view application. Click Next. In our product name, I am just going to call mine Slide Out Menu. That works. Okay, our language will be set to Swift and devices will be set to iPhone. Click Next and Create. Now let's make this a bit bigger and let's hop on over to our main.storyboard. Now in our main.storyboard we have our view controller that's already here. It's programmed with the class of our view controller as you can see here, so it's going to be edited by the viewcontroller.swift. We do not want this view controller anymore, so just go ahead, delete that. Or no, we don't want to delete main.storyboard. First, delete our view controller, and we want to import another view controller. This one is just going to be pretty blank. And then we want a table view controller up here. And this table view controller is going to act as the back view controller, or the rear view controller, which is going to hold all of our items so we can switch between different views. Now down here, we also want another, this will be a navigation controller. So just go ahead, add that navigation controller as you can see. And then as this navigation controller is being used, go to our root view controller right here. And we want to delete that root view controller and replace it with just a normal view controller. You can of course use the original root view controller, which is just a table view, but I'm not going to be showing you how to edit that table view. So now that we added that view controller, as you can see, let's go ahead and link that up with our navigation controller. So right click or control click and drag from our navigation controller over to our view controller, and we are going to root view controller. And now that that is rooted, we want to go over to our Safari or Google Chrome or whatever you use and go to SWReveal and just search SWRevealViewController. Now as soon as you search this, you will see John Lutch SWRevealController on GitHub. This will also be linked down in the description down below. Now let's go ahead, click on that and say download zip. Now inside of the zip file, you will see SWRevealController Master 5. We want to actually just take these two files from it that just say SWRevealController.h and SWRevealViewController.m. Now of course these are updated pretty regularly, so if you want just these files and this tutorial that goes along with these files, you can also download the beginning project files on my website. So again, just click and drag this SWRevealController.h and m files over to our supporting files in our slide out menu. It's going to say copy items if needed. We want to check mark that. And that's just if these items get misplaced, it won't ruin our program completely because these items are going to be copied. Now go finish, and it's going to ask you, would you like to configure an Objective-C bridging header? We want to say yes to this. This is going to allow us to use these Objective-C files in Swift. Say yes. And of course these are written in Objective-C, but that is the exact point of this tutorial, to show you how to use these files with Swift. Now let's head on over to our main.storyboard, go to our first view controller that we created right over here, and change the class to SWRevealViewController. Enter, and now this is going to be set to the view controller that we have right over here. Now, I also forgot to add something into this bridging header file, which is actually going to allow us to use the SWRevealViewController.h and m files. So inside of our bridging header files, it says use this file to import targets public headers that you would like to expose to Swift. So we want to expose our SWRevealViewController.h file. So in order to do this, you just say hashtag or pound import, open parentheses, close parentheses, and inside of these you just want to type in SWRevealViewController.h. So now we are bridging these files, so we are going to be allowed to use these files inside of our view controller. Now head back over to our main.storyboard, and we want to right click or control click and drag from our Reveal View Controller. There's this little dot right here, or if you want to do it from the hierarchy, you can click and drag from this hierarchy little dot that you can see. I'm going to just click and drag from this yellow dot right here, and just right click and drag from that Reveal View Controller over to our top view controller, which is actually our table view. And we want to say Reveal View Controller Set Controller. Now inside of this, you will see this is now a custom segue. So this will actually be our rear view controller, which will be hidden, and you can swipe to open up this view controller. In order to do this, you just click on this custom segue that we created, go head on over to our attributes inspector, and inside of this, go to your identifier, and we want to identify this as SW_rear. This is referenced inside of your SWRevealViewController, if you can find that, SW_rear. It is referenced inside of here as your SWRear identifier. So that's what this is all about. Let's head back over to our main.storyboard, and we want to do the exact same thing for our navigation controller right down here. So again, right click or control click and drag from this Reveal View Controller and say Reveal View Controller Set Controller. Now click on this, and we want to set the identifier equal to SW_front. So now that we have all those set up, let's head over to this view controller right over here. And we want to hook this view controller up with our viewcontroller.swift file. So go over here to your identity inspector and go to your class, and this is going to be called your view controller. So we are editing this via the viewcontroller.swift files that we have. Head back over to our main.storyboard, and we want to add a bar button item, and this is going to allow us to open up our sidebar. So right down here, click and drag a bar button item onto your scene. Double click on your bar button item, and we're going to change the name of this to open. Now open up your assistant editor and right click or control click and drag from open over to your view controller. And we want to insert this connection as an outlet, and open is going to be called open as the name. Connect. And our view did load, and inside of our view did load, we want to add a target. So we actually want our open button to do things. So in order to do this, you just say open.target. Target will be equal to, and this is going to be self.revealViewController. Like so. So it should automatically fill that in for you. I'm not sure why it didn't for me, but open.target equals self.revealViewController. And then down here we want to say open.action will be equal to selector, capital S selector, open parentheses, close parentheses, and inside of these you want to say open quotation mark, close quotation mark, and inside of these we want to say reveal toggle, like so, with a colon at the end. So now we are going to call a selector, which is inside of our SWRevealViewController.m files. And now if we were to build and run this, we should actually have our open button opening up our sidebar. Or actually not yet. So there, down here we had a thing that said failed to instantiate because the default view for UIMain.storyboard, perhaps the designated entry point was not set. Of course it wasn't. So we need to go over to our Reveal View Controller, go to our attributes inspector, and down here we want to say is initial view controller. So now that that's done, we can build and run, and now this will actually work pretty good. So click open, and we have our sidebar opening up. Now, we don't have anything inside of our sidebar, nor do we have anything happening when we click on this sidebar. So in order to actually make things happen, we need to right click or control click and drag from this table view cell that we have over here. So just click on our table view, and then click on our table view cell, and then right click or control click and drag from that table view cell over to our other table view over to our view controller that we created, and say Reveal View Controller Push Controller. So now it should be hooked up in this way, that we have this custom segue saying Reveal View Controller Push Controller. So now this cell is actually going to open things up. But there's nothing inside of this cell, and there's nothing populating this table view. So in order for this to happen, we need to go over to our cell, and inside of this, you'll see identifier. Our reuse identifier will just be cell. We will use this in just a minute. Head on over to our file, say File, New, File, and this is going to be a Swift file. Click Next. And the name of this file, we will just call this back table VC for view controller. Create. Click on our back table view controller, and we're going to create a class. So say class. Right here, you say the class, and this is going to be the name of it. We'll just call this back table SourceKit just crashed on me, so it should actually be back table VC, and the superclass of a UI table view controller, not cell, controller. There we are. And inside of this UI table view controller, we want a view.didLoad. So our view.didLoad will just be like that. And we want an array. So just say var table array will be equal to open bracket, close bracket, and inside of these you just want to say string. So we're going to have an array of strings. So let's take this array of strings and add stuff to it. So we can say table array is equal to open bracket, close bracket, open parentheses, close parentheses, comma. We'll just have 3 of these. So now we have 3 objects inside of our table array, and inside of our table array we want to make the first one hello. We can make the second one second, and world as our third one. Now we want to populate the table array with all of these arrays that we just created. So we can say table view, and this is going to be cell for row at index path. And then we also need to just go, I'll just put this right above here. We need to say table view. This is going to be number of rows in section. So in order to get the number of rows in section, we need to return. We're returning a value for the integer that we have right up here. So we're returning how many rows are inside of our section by just saying return. And this will be table array dot count. So we're counting the amount of objects that are inside of our array. And then down here we want to create a cell. So say var cell is equal to table view dot deq dequeuee. Probably didn't spell that right just then, but deq reusable cell with identifier, and the identifier we are going to call this cell. Now if you don't remember where I got this from, you can go back to your main.storyboard, click on your cell, and as you will see that we have a reuse identifier called cell. Also make sure it's capitalized properly or nothing will work properly. Go over to our viewcontroller.swift, our backtablevc.swift, and down here we will see deq reusable cell with identifier for index path, and this will be index path. If you're wondering where I'm getting this from, index path is created right up here for an index path. And then we also want to add one last thing that says as a UI table view cell. And then go down here and we want to return our cell. So we created a cell, and this is going to be as a UI table view cell and with the identifier of cell, and then we're returning this value of the cell back to our UI table view cell that is inside of this function that we have up here. Now we want to take this cell and we're going to add some text. So we can say cell.textLabel.text will be equal to table array for open square bracket, close square bracket, index path dot row. So we are grabbing via the index path dot row. So when it equals 0, when the cell equals 0, we are going to grab hello. When the cell equals 1, we are going to grab second, and when the cell equals 2, we are going to grab world. So now if we were to build and run this, we should actually have our whole system populating with this. So let's open up our sidebar. Now nothing happened because if we go back to our main.storyboard, we need to go back to our table view that is actually our back table view controller and set it up with the class name. So the class name will be back table VC. So we assigned our class to this view controller. Actually, here it is. Our class should be back table VC. Make sure it's highlighted blue or else it's not going to be right because you're probably editing something else. So now let's go ahead, build and run. And now we should get our table populating. So there we have it. We click open, it opens up with the side. And another thing I want to do is add a gesture. So this gesture is going to open this from the side now. So if we go back to our viewcontroller.swift, we want to say self.view.add gesture recognizer, and this gesture recognizer will be equal to self.RevealViewController.pan gesture recognizer. So when we pan across the screen, we are going to actually make our sidebar open. So we can open it up by clicking and dragging across our screen like so. And when you click on second, you'll see that it actually opens up our view controller as well. Now let's actually change values when we actually click on a certain cell. In order to do this, let's open up let's click and drag a label onto our scene like so. We'll just put it right over here. And we can take this label and we're going to connect it up in our assistant editor over to our viewcontroller.swift file. Right click or control click and drag from this label, and we're going to set this as an outlet, and we'll just call this label. Connect that. And now we also want to create another variable, and we'll call this label var, so var, and then we'll call this var view as our name, and this will be equal to an integer exclamation point, or actually open parentheses, close parentheses. So now that we have that done, we have our var view, and it's going to be equal to an integer. Now what do we want to do with this var view? We can easily just go down here inside of our view did load, and we can say if our var view is equal to 0, then we want things to happen. Or say else, then we want other things to happen, such as the label.text will be equal to others. And up here we can say if the var view is equal to 0, we can say label.text will be equal to strings. That's the best thing I could come up with. Let's go over to our back table view controller, and now we want to pass this data along. So in order to do this, we say prepare for segue, and inside of this prepare for segue, we want to create a destination view controller. So we can say var dest vc will be equal to our segue dot destination view controller. And this will be as our view controller. So we're creating this destination view controller, and we're setting it as our segue destination view controller, and this is going to be our view controller. Now we want to edit things on our viewcontroller.swift file, so let's head back over to our viewcontroller.swift file, and as you can see, the file is a bit blacker than everything else. That means it is not saved. So go back to our viewcontroller.swift and hit Command S to save our file, and that should lighten things up. Now go back to our backtable VC, and we want to say dest vc dot, and we should be able to actually take our value from our viewcontroller.swift file and change it. So we can say dest vc dot var view will be equal to our index path. We don't have an index path just yet, so let's also create an index path. So in order to add our own index path, we just say var index path, this will be the name of it, of course, colon ns index path, and this is basically naming it. So we're giving it the name of index path, and it's going to be an ns index path. We say is equal to our self.TableView.index path for selected row. So we are going to index the path for selected row, and we're going to return that as our index path. Now it's saying I need something else. It is an exclamation point to instantiate it. So inside of here, we see dest viewcontroller.varView, and we will make this equal to our index path.row. So we're grabbing what specific row it's going to be, and we're going to change the label.text accordingly, as we just did in our viewcontroller.swift. So now let's build and run, and we should see that our string is just string right now, and we can click on second, and it's going to turn into other. We can go into world and do the exact same thing. And when we click on hello again, it's back to string. So that is how you would edit one view controller. Now I'm going to show you actually how to take multiple view controllers and edit them likewise. So go over to our main.storyboard, and we're just going to delete this view controller that we have right here. Let's go ahead and add another view controller. And this view controller will basically be used exactly like the original one, but we're also going to have several different view controllers. So let's click and drag 3 view controllers in here, and you can edit them however you want. So now we have 3 view controllers, like so. I'm not saying this is the best way to do things, just because it's better to not have so many view controllers, because that takes up a lot of space. I did that in one of my apps, and it took up a lot of space. So you want to actually use as few view controllers as you can. Let's close up our assistant editor so you can see things a bit better. Right click or control click and drag from our navigation controller, and we're going to say reveal view controller set controller, like so. Now we have that set. We want to also go back to our table view, and inside of our table view you'll see when we click on this cell, we want the identifier to be set to nothing. click on our table view, as you will see, and we're going to set the number of prototype cells equal to 3 or equal to the amount of view controllers we have. So now that we have these 3 down, we can right click or control click and drag from the first cell, and we're going to say Reveal View Controller Push Controller for our first one. Do the same with this one for our second view controller, and lastly for this one, right click or control click and drag, and we're going to say Reveal View Controller Set Push Controller. So now we have these 3, and let's click and drag a switch onto our scene, an activity indicator, just so we can tell the difference for every scene that we have. So that makes it a lot easier. So now let's head back to our backtable vc.swift, and inside of this we just want to take out this prepare for segue that we did in the last one, as we are not going to be using it this time. Our table array, you want to keep this the same. And inside of our var cell equals TableView.deck reusable cell with identifier, we want to replace our text with our table array, open square bracket, close bracket, and we're going to put this as our index path.row. So now we have our index path.row, so it will either be hello, second, or world. And now let's go back to our main.storyboard, click on our backtable view controller, and on our first cell, we want to set the identifier equal to, hello, and you also want to make sure that it's capitalized properly. Let's open this up. Hello, second, and world. So again, our identifier will be second, and our last identifier will be world. So now that we have all 3 of these set, let's build and run, and we should get our populating view controller. Oh, I accidentally hooked this up improperly. This should not be push set view controller. This should actually just be a root view controller. So right click or control click and drag from your navigation controller over to our view controller and say root view controller. Now let's build and run, and we shouldn't get this black screen that we were getting before. Now we have this, and again, we don't have gestures. So in order to do this, we just need to say file, new, file. And this is going to be, we need to create a Swift file for every view controller that we are using, which is another reason why not to do this process. Although if you're wanting to use several different view controllers, you can use this process. So we're going to save this Swift file as just our hello. Yeah, we'll call it hello.swift. And inside of our hello.swift, we can say class. And our class name will be equal to hello of the superclass of a UI view controller, like so. And in our products.name, we can say view did load. We don't want anything to happen really when the view loads, except we want to add a gesture. So we can say self.view.add gesture recognizer, and again, this is going to be what we did before. Self.revealViewController.pan gesture recognizer. So we're adding a gesture recognizer onto our scene. And now we need to hook this hello.swift over to our main.storyboard. So click on our view controller that you see right here and go down to our identity inspector, click on the class, and we want to set the class equal to hello. And now that will be our first view controller. So if we were to build and run this, we can just swipe from the left, and now we have these popping up. Now we can click on second, and it opens up our second view controller. Now the problem with this is you don't have the add gesture recognizer again. So if you want to add that, you need to go file, new, file, Swift file. This is going to be our second. We can create that, go inside of our second.swift and do exactly the same thing that we did for hello, except with a different class name. So I'm just going to copy and paste what's in hello to second. And instead of the class being hello, we should call this second. Now let's go back to our main.storyboard and go to our second view controller, close up our assistant editor, and we're going to call the class of this equal to second. So now if we were to build and run this, we will have our second view controller having our gesture recognizer as well. So second, world, there you have it. That's it for this tutorial. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more tutorials like this from me in the future, be sure to subscribe. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.